This is Hidden Brain, and I'm a host, Shankar Vedantam. This week, our guest is well-known psychologist Alison Gopnik. Her most recent book, The Gardener and the Carpenter, is about the different ways parents approach raising kids. Dr. Gopnik, welcome to the show. Glad to be here. Your work is built around comparisons, parents behaving like gardeners, parents behaving like carpenters. Explain that for us. Well, if you look at the dominant culture of parenting in the developed world now, it's a lot of like being a carpenter. This idea is that you are working with fixed materials that can be shaped or rearranged, and if you have the right skills to follow the right instructions, then you'll be able to shape your child into a particular kind of adult. This approach is very different from what you get if you think of parenting as more like being a gardener. For one thing, a gardener never knows exactly what is going to happen because the gardener is working with partners, Mother Nature, the plants as active factors, not with fixed objects. So gardeners try to create a rich, supportive environment in which a lot of different things can happen. Personally, I'm convinced that taking care of a human being is much more like being a gardener than like being a carpenter. It's much more about providing a nurturing space in which both predictable and unpredictable things can happen than about constructing a particular kind of desirable adult. Hearing you describe it, the gardening model seems so natural, so well organic. How did we turn into a society of carpenters? Good question. For most of human history, the whole village has been involved in caring for children, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody. And that meant that by the time we had our own children, we had had lots of experience caring for children. During the 20th century, though, families got smaller and more mobile. Couples had children at a later age, and for the first time, many people starting families didn't have much experience caring for children, but did have lots of experience going to school and working. So I think it was natural for people to think, okay, this will be like going to school and working. If I can just find the right manual or the right formula, I'll do the job well and produce a good product. You also point out that compared to most other animals, humans have a very long childhood. That's right, we need a lot more time before we are ready to function on our own. So why are we different? One idea is that a long childhood gives you this protective period where you can figure out how to adapt to new conditions. And that's what makes it possible for humans to live in so many different environments. It seems to me that the gardening model is a perfect match for those conditions, the lengthy human childhood. That's exactly right. Imagine you could do the carpenting thing, plan it all out. Here is how I want my child to turn out. Here is how I'm going to make that happen. You would have lost the whole point of childhood, which is to cultivate new ideas, new ways of being in the world, new ways of understanding the environment. Fascinating. We'll continue our discussion after a brief break. B. Welcome back to Hidden Brain. I'm your host Shankar Vedantam, and we're discussing parenting with Dr. Alison Gopnik. We're also joined by Maurice Webb, head of a school for gifted children. Firstly, Dr. Gopnik, you've written that today's adolescents are in a very different situation from those in the past. Remind us of what you've observed. In some ways, they're doing much better than at any other time in modern history. They're achieving more, but that's partly because they are less likely to take risks. But that goes with a lot of anxiety, high levels of anxiety and fear. And I think that is kind of what you would predict from the carpenter story. How do you mean? Well, in the carpenter story, you're so concerned that the child come out correctly that you are not giving the child the freedom to take risks and explore and be autonomous. And it's not risk-taking unless there is some chance that it could really go wrong, and I think that's another aspect of the current parenting culture that's problematic. So, Dr. Gapnik, your argument is that by creating an environment where children can freely learn and explore, you raise children who perhaps are going to be better able to deal with what the world throws at them. But Dr. Webb, I wonder if things look differently from your perspective. Well, I think a world rewards people who can do very specific things and do them very well. Like in the Olympics, for example, people who are winning gold medals in ice skating in the Olympics, those are usually kids who started lessons when they were 3. And even though you might say, let the child figure out what he or she might want to do, if a child discovers that she really wants to be an ice skater when she's 14, it's probably too late at that point to really be very good at it. That's the problem. Right, and so I'm wondering if there could be reasonable differences here in what people might be aiming for as parents. I suspect that there is. The question is, are we aiming for children who are well-adjusted or for children who are successful? And I wish there wasn't a tension between those two things, but unfortunately I think there is. There's no question that most parents have a sense of being in a very competitive universe. I mean, parents see their teenagers staying up until 2 o'clock every night starting to get that little extra advantage that's going to get them into the best college. That's crazy. I'm genuinely sympathetic, but there is something wrong here. I agree, and I wish that success didn't require those extremes. But perhaps it isn't parenting that needs to change. Instead, it's how society rewards and punishes success in school. A small advantage in a test shouldn't make the enormous difference to anyone's life that it currently does. Competition based on fairness and equality is valuable, but life shouldn't actually be like a contest where there is either success or failure and most people fail. But that's what we have to prepare children for, and I think the real issue is there, not with the models of parenting themselves. Unfortunately, we are out of time and we have to end the discussion on that note. Thank you both for talking with us today.